Yes, welcome in. It's officially NCAA tournament season. Look at that smile on Jesse Temple's face. So excited.
I love this time of year, man. As a kid, you lived for this and filling out your brackets. And as a reporter, it's obviously different. But when you're invested in covering a program as long as we've been, you want to be a part of this. And so it's not as fun if Wisconsin is not invited to the NCAA tournament. Obviously, the Badgers have earned a 5 seed and will be heading out to Portland to play a morning game local time. It is what it is, but I'm excited to be able to chronicle everything that happens.
Yeah, I want to complain about it, but I'm not going to.
Nah.
Like the 10:50, and that's a West Coast game. It should be at night. But either way, it doesn't matter. The Badgers are playing in the NCAA tournament, and we're gonna jump into all of it. Also going to chat with Jordan Taylor, former Badger guard, and also a Big Ten analyst who was down in Chicago and still going to be doing a bunch of studio work during the tournament. So it's a good chance to talk with him and get his opinion on Wisconsin and a Wisconsin backcourt that I think a lot of people at this point are saying perhaps the best backcourt ever in Wisconsin history. That has been the conversation. So which I kind of agree with. Jump into all of it. Before we do, as always, we do have a YouTube channel. Check it out. Search the Badgers or search Badgers the Camp. You'll find it. We will have all our episodes up there for both the camp and the swing, and we've got spring practice coming. So a spring practice video, I guess, is what I would call it for sure. And check it out. Interviews as well. So yeah, find our YouTube channel. And also BadgerConnect.com. Jesse's going to be out, as he just said. He's going to be out in Portland getting all the inside of what's happening for the Badgers as they get ready to take on High Point and a lot of people hoping another game on Saturday.
Yeah, very busy time for the Badgers and certainly at Badger Connect as well. We'll have on Tuesday spring practice preview. I can't believe that spring practice is this week. Obviously, I won't be at the first couple because I'll be in Portland, but also have a Badger Bites coming out. Tuff Borland, new inside linebackers coach. Get to hear from him and his path to Wisconsin and his opportunity to take the role leading this inside linebacker room. And of course, all the coverage out in Portland beginning Thursday with the game against High Point.
Yeah, Thursday out in Portland. But you're going out Wednesday, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go out Wednesday. I know often they've got the day before media availability. We have a lot of content coming. I think we're covered there. And the game on Thursday is the biggie.
It is. Absolutely. I've never been I'm trying to think. You were covering the team, certainly. I don't know if you went, though, because I think it was when you're working with Fox. The game in 2013 that was in Kansas City. Did you go to that one?
Actually, that's the very first NCAA tournament game that I covered. And if I'm not mistaken, that was the Thursday morning, 11 a.m. slot. So Wisconsin was the first team eliminated, lost to Marshall Henderson. And there's your shark or whatever that is. It was
the land shark.
They were out 2 hours into the tournament. And that's not as enjoyable of an experience, but it was cool to at least be able to cover it.
Yeah, the reason I was saying that is because obviously you're playing one of the first games on Thursday at 12:50. So it is. I think if you're a fan, you'd rather have that game be like at 9:30 on a Friday night, right? So you get to enjoy all of Thursday, all of Friday. I don't know. Maybe some people want to get it. They just want that game. They don't want to wait. I think I'd probably rather wait and enjoy it and don't have to worry about my team getting knocked out in that first. The only reason I mentioned it as well for that reason, but also I was in Las Vegas. And so it was actually like a 9:00 tip out in Vegas and trying to find a bar, not a sports book, but a bar to watch it in. And, just kind of loses a little something when your team goes out that early, but we'll see. Wisconsin's got High Point on Thursday. We're going to dive into that, but I think we need to talk a little bit about what happened this weekend in Chicago, because the Badgers not only beat Washington on Thursday, they went and came back from 13 down or 15 down to beat Illinois on Friday, and then came back from 15 down on Saturday to almost beat Michigan. They couldn't get it done, but they impressed, I think, and it gives you a lot of hope going into, you would imagine, give you a lot of hope going into Thursday.
I think that week provided further proof that this Wisconsin team is never truly out of a game, especially at this stage of the season. I know they had that clunker at Oregon, and those things are going to happen over the course of a 20-game Big Ten season and obviously 30-plus regular season games. But when Wisconsin is doing what it's doing at this stage of the season, it gives you a lot of optimism. And so we will talk about the NCAA tournament and what's possible for them. But I felt like going into the tournament, all they need to do is win that first game. It ended up being Washington, and they're locked into a 6 seed. Well, they did better than that. They were able to overcome that 15-point deficit against Illinois. And God, that is such a talented Illinois team. I mean, for Wisconsin to beat them twice, one at Illinois, and then to do it after being down 15 midway through the second half, doesn't hurt to have, as you said, the best backcourt duo or best tandem Wisconsin's had in a long, long time. And maybe ever in terms of backcourts, because you had Nick Boyd going for 38, John Blackwell going for 31, the first duo at Wisconsin to go for 30-plus points in the same game since 1968. Those guys just carried Wisconsin. I mean, they basically accounted for every basket. I think Austin Rapp got in there and got like some free throws or bucket or whatever, but that helped to solidify Wisconsin's 5 seed. And then the Michigan game. Michigan's got 2 losses all season, one of which obviously to Wisconsin at Michigan. That game, I felt like they're going to win by 25. You're down 15 points to a team that had 24 wins this season by double digits. Find me very many teams that could be able to overcome a 15-point deficit against Michigan. Wisconsin does it because Austin Rapp, insert whatever pun you'd like to use, the rappening. I like the rappening. I know people are into the rapture.
The rapture with the video, or is it Elmo with the fire behind him? The rapture.
Yeah, I'm into the rappening, but 6 3-pointers in the blink of an eye. But that just goes to show you that how many guys can hurt you on this team. And that, like, Wisconsin didn't even shoot particularly well here these last couple of games. They beat Illinois going 10 for 41 from 3. And I think that the strength is going to be 3-point shooting, but at least it shows that Wisconsin has some other ways that they can win. It helps when Nick Boyd's getting downhill and when you can get to the free throw line. But just so impressed by what Wisconsin was able to do. And if you're a fan or maybe even a media member, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that Wisconsin didn't have to play on a Sunday. Because again, they're going out Thursday. Well, they're going out before Thursday. So you get that extra day. I wouldn't have changed, I don't think, the seeding. But as Greg Gard would say, if there's going to be a championship or if there's going to be something on the line, you want to be competitive and try and win it. But at this stage of the season, I just think rest and recovery matters so much. And Wisconsin is in the dance and has a great opportunity. So the Big Ten tournament was further proof, I think, of what could be possible.
Yeah, I was sitting there on Thursday, win this game, and they almost lost it.
Yes,
they sure did. Speaking of blowing leads or being able to come back, Washington did not want their season to end there, and so they almost came all the way back. Wisconsin a little loose with the ball, didn't make some shots they probably should have made, took some shots maybe they shouldn't have. Either way, they get that past that game, and then it's like, all right, and anything else is gravy. And then they go and beat Illinois the way they did and came so close to beating Michigan. I have zero problem with them losing that game and getting to come home one day early. And because we've seen what has happened the last 2 years where you're playing into Sunday. And I don't know if it affected them. I mean, I think it did. I think Greg Gard admitted it a little bit. Was it yesterday or maybe the day before? That is something that can impact you for sure. Don't have that excuse this time. Right. And you know, what's all the other, and I guess we'll get into this. I actually talked about this with Jordan. The last two times they were a 5 seed, they weren't playing good basketball coming into the tournament.
Yep.
Right. You think about the 2019 season with Ethan Haps last year, they kind of faded down the second half. They were shooting so well to start the year, and then they faded. And playing an Oregon team that was playing really well, they just weren't playing great basketball. And so even though they made a run in the Big Ten tournament, they just weren't playing good basketball. And then 2 years ago was the exact same way. They were not playing good basketball going into that Big Ten tournament up in Minneapolis. There was a lot of, I think I remember us talking about it. It just wasn't great. And then they go and make their run. You're thinking they're back. They're back to what they were earlier in the year. And then we saw what happened against James Madison. I think they're in a much better position now, not just based on what would happen in the Big Ten tournament, but really just, January and February for Wisconsin, what they did. I feel better about it right now than I did the last 2 times they were a 5.
I wholeheartedly agree. These last few years we've seen Wisconsin get hot early. I mean, shoot, what were they, 6th in the AP top 25 a couple years ago, and then faded down the stretch. And it was the opposite this year. It was a little bit slower starting. They weren't ranked going out of non-conference play. I didn't feel all that confident that this was an NCAA tournament team. It was certainly not based on the resume at that stage. They needed to do some work in Big Ten play. And what have they done the last 2 months? They have the best combination of wins, I think, of pretty much any team in the country. Certainly the Michigan game, and I know Michigan lost to Purdue in the Big Ten championship game, so now the Wolverines have 3 losses. But to do that at Michigan, to have the wins that you did against Illinois and Michigan State, and then Purdue to close the regular season and to come back with the Illinois win, they have shown that they can play some extraordinary basketball, and they have done it later in the season. And so that's what makes me feel good. And you brought up the James Madison game. I don't want to get too far out in front of my skis here by talking about the NCAA tournament, but I think there are some natural comparisons to be made, given that it's a 5-12 matchup against a mid-major with 30-plus wins.
The other thing that happened at the Big Ten tournament is they did not have Nolan Winter. They did not have him, obviously, against Purdue either. Won that game without him. They beat Washington, beat Illinois, nearly beat Michigan without Nolan Winter. He says he's going to play Thursday. I can't sit here and say that he's not going to, so I won't. But I think anybody that saw him walking around the United Center this weekend would suggest that maybe he's, I think unless he just has a natural limp to his walk, he was still, he felt a little tender, a little ginger. We'll see. But he says he's going to play, but they didn't have him. How big was that? If they don't have him Thursday, how big was this past, 4 games, learning how to play without him and being able to play without him?
Undoubtedly huge. I mean, Wisconsin does have a bit of a luxury this season in having somebody like Austin Rapp, because he started the first 7 games this year. They took him out of the lineup, replaced him with Alexis Biliauskas. He didn't sulk. He didn't pout. He became a key reserve. But he's got that starting experience. He obviously played a ton a year ago at Portland. And so he stepped into that starting role with tremendous confidence. And you don't expect 6 threes in 2 seconds like he did against Michigan, but he's shown he's capable of that. And for Wisconsin to put together that level of consistency and high-level execution without Nolan Winter shows that they have the ability to not miss a beat. But I don't want to sit here and pretend like you're a better team without Nolan Winter. And certainly from a rebounding standpoint, I mean, especially with a lot of these teams that shoot as many threes as they do, and the box outs matter so much, and the physicality and the paint when guys do get in there, he can impact shots even if he doesn't get a block. You need him in there, and of course that allows the minutes to be distributed a little differently if Austin Rapp's coming off the bench. And I just look at High Point, for example. You don't have a big lineup there. The guys that are playing might be around 6'8", and I think Nolan Winter could do some damage. But my question here is, and I think this is a question we probably got when you asked for them for our show, what would this look like? And I don't know what the answer is, because how close to 100% would Nolan Winter be? And how much do you want to have him out there if he isn't at 100%? How long would it take for him to feel like he's got the conditioning back? I know he's played a full season, but to sit out at this time of the year, I don't necessarily know that you just step on the floor on Thursday and everything comes back to you and you're going to expect him to play 30-plus minutes. I don't know if that's realistic. I don't know that there's a lot of scenarios that are exactly like this, but I think back to, this is a decade plus ago, but Trayvon Jackson got hurt, right? And then now he missed a lot longer period of time. Yeah. And Bronson Koenig was Bronson Koenig and did his thing. But Trayvon came back during the NCAA tournament, if I'm not mistaken, and he came off the bench and provided a bit of a lift, but it was like, you're going to have a different role. Now, this is different because it's only, 4 games that Nolan missed. But again, if he's not 100%, I don't know how the staff would ultimately decide to utilize him. Certainly you'd like him on the floor, but only if he's going to be in a position to help you physically. Yeah.
Again, it's going to be 14 days, I believe, from the time he got hurt to when they play on Thursday. He got hurt on a Wednesday. So I guess 14, 15, however you want to say it. He could not put any weight on that foot when he was, the way he got carried off the court, and now to be expecting him to be ready to go 2 weeks later. We'll see. Again, they're all saying he's going to play. So I think maybe I just need to expect that he's going to play. And now we have to see exactly how much he can end up playing. But yeah, the Trayvon Jackson came off the bench against North Carolina and it hit a 3 right away in the corner there. And I'm trying, he didn't play a ton. Did not play a ton in that game. Didn't play a ton against Arizona. Didn't play a ton against Kentucky. Played a little bit more against Duke. Actually had a good game against Duke when very few people did. So I don't know, but you're right. He was out for months, or he was out for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever it was. It was late January that he got hurt against Rutgers and came back in late March. So, but a different situation. But I we'll see.
Yeah,
that's all we can do.
I also think there's something to be said for the adrenaline that you get if you're in that moment. And if you've got an opportunity to actually warm up and be out there and you're preparing mentally to play, maybe that gives you a little bit of a boost that you otherwise wouldn't have if you're walking around the United Center. But for Wisconsin's sake and for Winter's sake, certainly you hope Wisconsin is as close to full strength as it can be, because for the Badgers to make a run in this tournament, they're going to need their best players out there.
Yeah. So again, Nolan Winter's playing. I think I'm just going to go ahead and that's the way I'm going to think about this the rest of the week. Jack Janicki is another guy that potentially they get back. And I know when I posted that on Thursday, he was dribbling around at the United Center, didn't have the brace or the cast or the wrap or whatever he had in his left hand. He was just dribbling around. And I noted that. And there were some people like, no, that's okay. We're good. Thanks. I don't want him back. But what he can do defensively, especially against, a team that wants to run and play up tempo like High Point, and you would like another ball handler to be able to have on the floor against a team that is the best at stealing the ball in the entirety of college basketball. They're averaging over 10 steals a game. It's insane. That would be another nice addition back into it. Let's jump into this High Point game. I know we've touched on it. I need to change the screen here because we've talked a ton about High Point without actually talking about High Point. But yeah, they're going to face High Point on Thursday morning out in Portland. And it's a 12-5 matchup. And for as long as I can remember, the 12-5 matchup is where you pick the upsets, right? And I think that there are probably some that would pick High Point. But how do you feel about this game?
Clark Kellogg picked him 2 seconds into the bracket reveal.
And then did he talk about their size or something like that? And they have none. So
yeah. So
at least it's not Seth Davis this time.
I have a lot of thoughts on this matchup, like when you see it on the screen. And, I thought it was interesting, the Wisconsin social media account, they showed Wisconsin reacting to its seeding, right? But then they showed them reacting to seeing High Point. And it's not as though necessarily that any of these guys watch High Point, but I think you see, you see the 30-4 on the screen. And I can remember talking about this when we did our show 2 years ago going into the James Madison game. And this is not apples to apples, but it was my first thought. There's something about at this stage of the year, it scares me when you have to play a team that has compiled 30-plus wins. And I understand the level of competition is not going out and playing 20 Big Ten games, but what it shows is a team that knows how to win games and has a confidence about it, and usually goes out and plays in the NCAA tournament with that level of confidence to whatever their style of play is. I don't think High Point is as good as James Madison, and I think this Wisconsin team is better than the Wisconsin team we saw 2 years ago. Certainly their scoring is better. They have Nick Boyd. They've got John Blackwell as a junior and not as a freshman. Same with Nolan Winter, assuming he's healthy. But High Point is an interesting team because they're averaging 90 points a game. That's third in the country. The numbers are a little bit skewed because 3 of the wins come against non-D1 teams where they put up like 120-plus points. They put up 100-plus points twice against Gardner-Webb. But I don't want to discount their ability to score. They just beat Winthrop in the conference tournament championship game by putting up 91 points. It's a different kind of roster. There's not a bunch of 7-footers. There's not any 7-footers. It's largely their biggest dudes are 6'8". There's a couple guys on the roster that are listed at 6'10". But this is a team that I think can give Wisconsin trouble because of its willingness to push the pace, its ability to get steals. Wisconsin has generally taken care of the ball, but sometimes, as you said, they can get a little loose with it. And this feels like the kind of game that's going to be the first to 90. Wisconsin certainly capable of it, would probably love to get involved in that. But if Wisconsin is not hitting shots and High Point gets a little confidence early, then I think you can have some trouble. So yes, every year it feels like there is a trendy 12-5 upset pick. This feels like, at least externally, the pick that people want to make. We talked a couple weeks ago about what this NCAA tournament could be for Wisconsin, and that I think I said it wouldn't surprise me if Wisconsin makes it out of the first weekend, and it wouldn't surprise me if they get upset in the first game. As I go into this week, though, I would be more surprised if Wisconsin loses the first game relative to or compared to them actually making out of the weekend. And I know they would have to play potentially Arkansas in the second round, but I just think the ceiling for this team is so high, and you just expect it to materialize in these moments. And we'll see whether they can rise to the occasion, because it's not going to be an easy path.
What is the thing that would worry you if you're Wisconsin about High Point?
Well, Wisconsin's reliance on 3-pointers is undeniable. They're shooting over 32 a game. I know that they're like 4th in the country in made threes a game, over 11.5. They're going to set the Big Ten record for most made threes in a game, and they're 7th in the country, I think, in 3-point attempts. But when you're that reliant on threes, and if you start missing and High Point gets a lead, I just worry about that. Everybody, however many people are in the arena, and granted, I don't know how many there are going to be at 1050, but then they get on High Point's side, and then High Point starts to have belief. And if you get a little tight, you can get in big trouble. So it's the same thing that's going to carry Wisconsin into the second weekend. Should the Badgers be able to make it, is what could be the downfall, is the reliance on threes. And if they get tight and keep missing, they could be in trouble. That's
yeah, for sure. I think like another difference between the two, James Madison and this one, James Madison actually played some teams and beat some teams.
Yes,
they went in. They went. What'd you say?
Thank you for pointing that out, because that matters here too.
They went to Michigan State and beat Michigan State in the opening game of the year when Michigan State was number 4 in the country. High Point hasn't even played a team in Quad 1, and they're 0-2 against teams in Quad 2.
Yes,
they're the only team in the country. I think this was from Haslam Metrics, Eric Haslam, who's a Wisconsin fan, but does like the analytics as well. And I believe they're the only team in the entire tournament that has not played a top 100 team this year.
It's truly remarkable. If you look at the net rankings, which again is a tool that the committee uses, it's not the end all be all. 0-0 against Quad 1s, as you said, 0-2 against Quad 2s, 22-0 against Quad 4s. They beat the bad teams, which is how you put yourself in position to get into the NCAA tournament. And yes, they don't have the opportunity or didn't play really good teams. They have won 14 straight games coming into this tournament. They went 15-1 in their conference. They're 30-4 overall. But absolutely, that's got to be the biggest question if you're looking at High Point is, well, what does this look like if they play a team of quality? We have no idea because they barely played anybody.
Right. Like their strength of schedule is right up there with Miami of Ohio. And Miami of Ohio played in a better league, obviously. But they just haven't played anybody. And you would hope that would certainly go to something in Wisconsin's favor. And we'll see what happens on Thursday at 12:50. Is there an X factor for Wisconsin? I know that's kind of a cliche question, but is there a guy, like for me, we usually know, at least what we've seen the last 2 weeks and really pretty much the entire season from Nick Boyd, but you know pretty much what you're going to get from Nick Boyd and what you're going to get from John Blackwell, right? It's some of the other pieces. If Nolan's playing, you usually know what you're going to get from him as well. But Austin Rapp, Braden Carrington, Alexis Bieliauskas, if they're hitting outside shots, it just obviously changes everything. If the bigs are hitting shots, it changes everything because it forces teams to play Nick and John different.
Yeah, I don't know if I can pick a single X factor because all those guys are capable of big games. You know, Braden Carrington has not shot it particularly well here this last week in the Big Ten tournament, and yet he's still at 40.2% from three this season, which speaks to how good he was before. We've seen what he can do when he gets hot. Single game program record, 9 threes against Washington, made 7 threes against Minnesota. Austin Rapp made 6 threes in the half. That was a great quote that you provided from Yaxel Lindeborg about just like, you're doing everything you can. All of a sudden, this dude hits 6 threes. What are you supposed to do? Bieliauskas has hit 5 threes in the game against Michigan. He shot pretty well in the Big Ten tournament. I think it can be anyone. I was asked this question a week ago going into the Big Ten tournament, and my answer, maybe it's cheating, but I said it was John Blackwell because there have been moments where he sort of faded. He had, 7 points in that first game against Washington during the regular season? He
apparently was quite sick. He was throwing up on the plane on the way going out there.
Well, then that's okay. You've got an excuse. But there have been other games this season where it felt like it ebbed and flowed, and he had a tougher stretch earlier in the season when he's playing the way that he played in the Big Ten tournament in conjunction with Nick Boyd. I don't know how you deal with that because those guys are true 3-level scorers. They can consistently get downhill, and then that creates openings for these other guys, which is perhaps why there's some of the X factors. If they get open shots and they hit them, it makes Wisconsin so much more dangerous. But again, that's why I think the ceiling is so high for this group, because all of these guys can shoot and score. It
feels like John got a little bit of a kick in the butt. I don't know if it's from himself or from somebody else, but we talked about this. The demise of John Blackwell was greatly exaggerated. People saying he was done and he's already looking at next year and all that stuff. And then he goes and does what he's done this last, going back to the Maryland game, and the Purdue game, and then the 3 games of the Big Ten tournament was back to John Blackwell, who we've known for much of his career. So whatever it was, and he said he got in his head a little bit and that type of stuff, but whatever it was, it doesn't seem there anymore. And it feels like both of those guys are playing at the highest level heading into this game. And we'll see exactly what it looks like. So, all right, going to jump into our interview here with Jordan Taylor now. Talk a little Badgers, High Point, Big Ten, see if they can get over the hurdle and win their first national championship, the Big Ten, that is, since Michigan State did it back in 2000. So here he is, Jordan Taylor. And we do welcome in a special guest. It is former Badgers guard and current Big Ten Network analyst, Jordan Taylor. Jordan, appreciate joining us.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, Zach. Always good to be here.
Yeah, so I know that you probably weren't expecting to be where you are right now. You're still in Chicago. Obviously, the Big Ten tournament took place this past weekend, but as anybody that is living in the Midwest, in Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, pretty much anywhere in the Midwest, getting hit by the storms, you had to stick around?
Yeah, well, I stuck around, but also my wife is from the UK, so she's headed back tonight, so it didn't hurt so bad. I was gonna stay through Monday anyway. I had the studio stuff yesterday and stayed through Monday, and then I'll just get out tomorrow. So a day later than expected.
Yeah, as I'm looking out the window right now, it's snowing sideways. So that's that's great. But it is March, even though it doesn't look like it outside. It is NCAA tournament time, and is it one of your favorite times of year? It has to be, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like just from the Big Ten tournament, the games that we had this weekend were great. Like they were extremely entertaining. That's all you can really ask for. Take out your bias. Once Wisconsin gets knocked out, and you just want good games. And it's Purdue and Michigan was a great game as well. Obviously, Wisconsin played in a couple of thrillers. So yeah, I mean the level of intensity just ratchets up.
Let's talk about Wisconsin. We'll get to High Point. Obviously, a lot of people looking forward to that game on Thursday out in Portland. But let's go back just into the Big Ten tournament because, you coming into it, Wisconsin, you're thinking just win that first game, beat Washington, maybe go home, get some rest because the last couple of years you've been playing into Sunday and then turning around and have to jump on a plane right away. This time you don't have to do that, but just win that first game. And then they get to Illinois and they're down, 13? And you're like, all right, yeah, just go home. It's fine. That's not how they think. They didn't think about that way against Illinois. Didn't think about that way about it that way against Michigan. What can you say about this team's mentality, this intensity that it just doesn't quit? And I feel like that may be one of its best traits.
Yeah, well, I think, when I was playing, it was always when we had some comeback games, it was always a surprise because we played from ahead so much. But now, stylistically, obviously, it's funny because I don't think the principles, the philosophy when you watch the game, it hasn't changed too much. It just plays a little faster. If you're a kid, it looks more fun. It is more fun to play in because it's more up tempo. But that allows you to always be in the game. It also allows you to get down right when you're not making the shots. But what I'll say about obviously Coach Guard, Joe, Sharif, great, all the coaching staff, like those guys all know each other well. I think they all believe in one another. I think they believe in this team. I think Nick Boyd he's whatever it is, he's got it. And it's he's played in a lot of big basketball games. JB is amazing as well, but Nick is he plays with this ferocity. And I think, just what was evident from that Illinois game to me was I think someone just needs to hit him in the face or hit him in the mouth before the game starts and that'll turbocharge him. So yeah, he's got it. I'm excited for them. There's little 4-game mini tournaments. You look at the first one and then you got the second one in the back of your mind.
That game against Michigan, though, again, it's a fantastic game. 2 really, really good teams, but Wisconsin coming back down from 15 against, what ended up, I guess, being the number 3 overall seed in this tournament. I think it really just suggests the ceiling for them. Would you agree with that? Like when they're playing like that, that's who they can be.
Yeah, I had Wisconsin in person the first games of the year. I think it was maybe Ball State or Northern Illinois. I can't remember what games it was, but watching them just with JB and Nick, this team, I've said since then they're either gonna be a second round exit because of the volatility of the way they shoot the 3, or they're gonna mess around and end up in the Final Four national championship, right? And The beautiful thing about it is I think because Nick's experience can carry them a long way. It's no secret he's not afraid of the big game. I think it was huge to get a guy like not having Nolan this weekend and still performing the way they did to get Nolan back and then have Austin Rapp going into the tournament confident. Yauskis doesn't seem to care about much either. He doesn't when he's out there, his expressions are kind of like, what next, very much next play with it. So which is amazing for a freshman. And then you got some minutes from Will Gardlock. You got everybody kind of moving in one direction right now. Rhodey's playing great defense. Braden Carrington's shooting it. So you get excited about what could be, but they still got to guard.
That's the thing. Well, I want to talk about that because we talk about the culture. The culture is very similar, right? The culture of the program is very similar. But the way you play also, it does change things when you play the offense the way that they do, and as many shots as they're putting up and as many threes as they're putting up, the other team's going to score some points, right? So, but I wanted to ask about Nick. Can you think of anybody that he reminds you of that's played here before? Like I don't know that there is there?
Actually, yeah, I would say everybody. I said this not to be that guy. I don't want to be that I told you so guy, but like at the I think it was the Northern Illinois game. I think I said he's kind of got a little bit of every Badger guard's pass, right? Like when he's in his mode of passing and getting in the paint, he's got a little Tracy Webster to him. He's got that swagger Trayvon had. You're both obviously from New York. He's got speed like Devin Harris. He's obviously a lefty like Trayvon Jackson. So I was, if I had to pick a singular person to compare him to, I probably would just compare him to Devin the most, just because Devin was kind of a one man fast break and like a juggernaut and kind of give him the rock and let him go. And he's not, I wouldn't say he's as tactical as some of the other guards, but I would say he's got that flair of, or he's got a little bit of something from a lot of different Badger guards.
And he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder too, right? Like he plays with a bit of a chip on his shoulder for a variety of reasons. I think largely because it gets him going, and he's emotional like that. We've been talking about it throughout the season, and as it continues to gather steam, and they continue to play as well as they have. Is John Blackwell and Nick Boyd the best backcourt at Wisconsin? And I know a guy who played in the backcourt maybe wouldn't take kindly to that question, but I was just going back and looking through it. I mean, I think they might be. They have, at least scoring wise, offensively, they have to be up there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old, so I don't care. My day is come and gone. So it's beautiful to see these two guys get into it. So anybody that doesn't take kindly to that question, that's weird. But I would say they're the best scoring backcourt for sure. I still would want to be fair to the guys that have played. Like I would say Kirk and Devin were pretty good in the backcourt together. And then you got to take into account the styles. I would say again, between the style of play, they are by far the most electric backcourt that Wisconsin has had. And again, you got to give Coach Gard credit for that as well. I don't know how many times we've heard people say calling for Coach Gard's head, anytime something goes wrong. But he's the one who's between him and Kirk and Joe and those guys, they've opened up this offense to allow those guys to have the freedom to do what they do. And these guys have taken it by the reins and they've executed. So, and furthermore, I think this Badger team is the most exciting Badger team I can remember. So I think they're the poster childs for that. So they were really, man, I was having a ball watching those guys from the desk and from the stands this past weekend.
Can you feel like they came up and sat with you guys on the set there after the Illinois game, right? And it was, can you just feel do they exude confidence like when you're around them? Can you feel that coming off of Nick? Can you feel that coming off of John?
Yeah, I think they're both different guys, right? Like Nick, and one of the funnest parts about the job with Big Ten is, getting to be here. Well, now that I'm older and I know more, I know stuff that I didn't know when I was their age. Just kind of experiencing energy. You get a guy like Bruce Thornton, who's just this kind of quiet killer, and he exudes confidence, and it's just. But Nick gets up there, and Nick is boisterous, and he's got this just swagger about him that he's just out there hooping. Like I think the beautiful thing about Nick's game is if you're playing with him, sometimes it could be frustrating because he is always attacking. He's always attacking. However, he reminds me of Deshaun Thomas from Ohio State in a way. Not their play styles, of course, but Nick isn't a selfish kid at all. He's just out there having the time of his life playing basketball, and you can see it. And when he's out there playing, and it's like it's contagious. So he comes to the desk, and he's talking, and he's just very much like in the moment, man. He's very present in what he's doing, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, man. You can see he loves the game of basketball.
I feel like if he had played his entire career here, he would have been one of the more beloved players in school history, just because of the type of emotion he has and the type of outward motion he has and getting the crowd involved. They've warmed to him so much this year. And if he also was here for that entire 4 years, he also would have been pretty hated by every other Big Ten fan base. Just because of that same stuff, right? Like, he just has I suspect he would be just polarizing. But right now, everybody at Wisconsin is just in love with him.
I think he's going to be one of the most beloved anyway. Even in just a year, I think one thing you talk about being older. When you're a kid in basketball, you kind of think that, you're the man and like all this other stuff you get, encompassed by your own BS. And I think getting older, you realize it is about the fans, and Nick makes it about the fan. Like you said, he gets them involved, and it's about like that Michigan game. I think a lot of Wisconsin, even in a loss, I think a lot of fans will remember that game forever, right? Like, I don't know. I can't name too many Wisconsin games that the fans remember losses in a way that is endearing to the player. And then Nick, I think he made it that way. The 3 to tie it at the end. Obviously, people are going to remember the Illinois game even more. But the 3 to tie it at the end, the tough finishes with the left, like the comeback, Austin Rapp, like that. People will remember that game, I think, for a long time.
Absolutely. So I did want to ask about Nolan Winter. They played very well without him this weekend. He is such a big part of it, though. Can they make a deep run if he is not healthy enough to play, if he's not able to play? I would imagine they can get by Thursday, maybe, but like, can they make a deep run without him?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I think it's not helpful, but we just saw him go toe to toe with a 3 seed Illinois and again the 3rd overall seed without Nolan. So I think one thing again that I'll give credit to the coaches for is the depth of this front court. Like, who would have thought AB Alexa Bielskis would have been doing what he's doing as a freshman? He makes mistakes at times and he has his flaws defensively, but again, extremely confident kid. I can't remember a ton of freshmen. Like, there's obviously been some who just come in and kind of plug and plays like he's been. He's been outstanding. Will Garlock came in and gave some good minutes. He'll have to step up. And then Austin Rapp is a guy who, when he's playing tough, he's as good as a lot of bigs in the Big Ten. And he's playing tough, and obviously he can make shots, and he's playing confident. So they can make a run. However, like, again, Nolan is removing Nolan from the lineup does not help.
Yeah, for sure. Looking ahead to High Point coming up on Thursday, for some reason, the game being played at 12:50 Central, so it's a 10:50 tip out there while there's games on the East Coast being played at night. I know it's all a TV thing, but it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Either way, with High Point, they've won 14 straight. They are the champions of the Big South. They got into the tournament last year. What scares you if you're Wisconsin? What scares you about High Point? Not scares you, but what worries you? What do you have to focus on?
I think, again, their ability to get up and down and score points too in a tournament setting where, you don't want to get down in the first game, especially without Nolan. If he's not available, I think he will be. But if he's not available, you don't want to get down to a team like that and give them confidence, right? So you got to suffocate them early, which has been, I think, weak point of the Badgers at time, right? That just being able to suffocate teams defensively. So I know Nick, again, he's played a ton of games, big games. He's going to be in there preaching that 4-game tournament mindset. You got to focus on the first game, obviously, with your eye on Arkansas, assuming that they win. But you got to come in, and this team at times has been needed a little more needed to be incentivized to play defense. So I think that they got to come in and set the tone defensively early on. And if they can do that, then I don't really see how High Point sticks with them. And then just historically, man, between Coach Gard, Coach Ryan, I think I was talking about this yesterday on set with Andy Katz, and I think someone on that CBS selection show chooses Wisconsin to get upset in the first round almost every year. I think they probably did it when they were a 1 seed, if I had to guess. I don't know the exact record that Wisconsin has in the first round, but it's got to be something like 19-4 in 25 years, or 19-3, something like that. I'd have to go back and check. So they're pretty good in the first round. Coach Gard, Coach Ryan, we always prepare well, so I would expect them to come out and beat High Point. I saw Frank was a little jazzed up too on Twitter about the selection stuff. So,
oh yeah, he was talking about it on Saturday, how Wisconsin always gets screwed. They're always the ones that get the worst seed and get put in bad spots. And yeah, he was upset about it yesterday as well. Again, like you're a 5 seed, you're going to play a 12, and most of the 12s are teams that people are scared of just because of the 5-12 upset stuff that we always talk about. Wisconsin's fallen victim to that, right? We saw it with James Madison a few years ago, but Wisconsin wasn't. Yes, they made a run in that Big Ten tournament to the final, but they weren't playing good basketball going in to the Big Ten tournament. And then you think back to the Oregon game, I think it was 2019, Ethan Happ's last year. That Oregon team was playing really well down the stretch. They had a ton of size. This game to me is a little bit more like the James Madison one, just because you have a team that is kind of try to muck it up a little bit. They're a team that they lead the country in steals per game. So I don't think they're going to make it easy on Nick Boyd and John Blackwell and everybody else to, get into the offense, much less score points. So I think that for me, that would be where I would just be a little concerned because of what we saw a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean, and a couple of years ago, I think you look at the construction of that team, AJ Storr probably being the best scorer, not probably being the best scorer. I don't think you had the ball handlers that this team had. Like, I think in that James Madison game, they were able to muck it up. Still wasn't the pace that they play at now, because they couldn't, it was a couple, 1-2 guys maybe that were making plays. Now you can kind of pick your poison. Rhodey can bring it across the timeline. Nick can bring it across the timeline. JB brings it across the timeline. Braden brings it across the timeline. So it's just much harder to crawl up into Wisconsin now. And I would just say that if they have multiple ball handlers, it's an easier way to get into their offense. However, yeah, if they come out and they play super physical, Wisconsin's got to match that intensity. And if they don't, then yeah, it could be a long night. But I don't see them being able to do it the same way that James Madison did.
Yeah, for sure. When you look at the rest of the bracket for Wisconsin, they're in the West region. They would get potentially Arkansas in the second round, and then in the Sweet 16 it would be Arizona again. Do you like? I mean, again, at this time of year you're going to play good teams, but do you like some of the matchups that potentially Wisconsin could have after High Point?
Yeah, I do actually. Arkansas, just looking at them and the way that they score the ball, they're get downhill team, get to the rim. And again, if we talk about that philosophical and principle, it hasn't changed defensively. Like a team that Wisconsin's still gonna be solid at protecting the rim. If guys are getting all the way down, we're gonna late switch or do whatever they have to do to stop them from doing that. That's where Nolan, I think, becomes extremely important in that second game against Arkansas, like being able to deter Darius Cuff and Bazile and all those guys from getting all the way to the rim, because they don't shoot it well in the mid-range, and they're not great three-point shooting team. So if you can take away that rim against a team like Arkansas, then you give yourself a really good chance to win, or at least lower their percentages there. So I actually don't mind that matchup. As far as Arizona goes, that's a tough one. They're probably the second best team in the country. But again, that's where you go back to, all right, can you get enough stops to keep yourself in the game? And I don't think there's any fear. I know there's not any fear between JB and Nick, where if you can be in a game in the Sweet 16 and you put a little game pressure on a team like Arizona, I'll put my money on Nick and JB to hit some big shots and get enough stops down the stretch. So I don't hate it. It's not the best draw. I know Frank complains a little bit. Frank shouldn't be complaining too much. I think when their first year they went to the Final Four, they got an amazing draw between with that 2 seed. So, but this one is tough. It's a tough draw. It's not easy, but not insurmountable.
Yeah, that 2 seed and getting to play in Milwaukee for those first 2 games.
Yeah.
Like I've maintained that if they played anywhere other than Milwaukee, that Oregon game when they were down, I think they were down 12 at halftime. I don't know that they come back. I think several guys said they don't know if they don't think they would, because the Bradley Center was as loud as I've ever heard it.
Yeah, I was able to be at that game. I was injured that year, so back from that was it was a home game. To your point, I don't know if they win without the home game, but that was also an electric game.
Yeah, for sure. So how far do you have Wisconsin going now?
I think if they get past Arkansas, if they can get past Arkansas, again, assuming Arkansas can Arkansas wins, I have them in it. I have them at least going to the Elite Eight, honestly. I think it's either second round or Elite Eight. I feel good. Maybe it's a little bit of nostalgia and overconfidence about their history against Arizona in the tournament.
Yeah.
Our history against Arizona in the tournament, I should say. But I actually like them to either second round or get to the Elite Eight, Final Four.
I think there has to be some PTSD with Arizona fans if Wisconsin's sitting there in the Sweet 16, right? You would think.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. They've had to beat Arizona at least 3 times in a row, right? Including regular season.
Yeah, they beat them. Well, they lost. They played a home and home. I think the when Wisconsin missed
3-1.
Yeah. And in the tournament, they've gone, I think, 3-1 against them, right? They beat them in 2000 when they were the number 1 seed, when they were going to win to the Final Four. They lost to them, got the crap beat out of them one of the years, and then obviously the back-to-back Final Four years beating them. So I would assume there's probably some residual effects of what happened over a decade ago. But for you, you see all the Big Ten, you know, doing all the Big Ten games the entire season. Is this the year that they finally get the title? Is there a team there that can do it? I think there's several teams that could. Do you think one of them does?
Yeah, I think Purdue has a draw very similar to Wisconsin's. In they're saying the same region, right? So I think Purdue is that right? I got to go back and check the bracket again, but I believe Purdue's at the bottom of that bracket.
Okay.
Let me see right here. I have it right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Purdue's the bottom. Yeah, Purdue's the bottom of that bracket in the West. So I think Purdue has a very draw reminiscent to Frank's team that year, being, I believe, in St. Louis to start. So the way they're playing, they're not a team that's really built to athletically kind of go 6 games in a row like that. However, if they play how they did the past, 4 games, where I didn't think they were, built to win 4 games in 4 days, especially against the Michigans of the world, and so on and so forth. So Purdue for sure. Michigan is unquestionably got a chance. They got a nice draw down there in the Midwest region, so they'll be back in Chicago, which will be nice. I think Michigan without LJ Kaysen is a little concerning. They don't have the guy to kind of make plays off the bounce consistently. Elliot Cadeau is really good. He's been a bit up and down. Trey McKinney's been coming on. So, but again, Michigan needs to find their moxie. If they can, then 1,000%. And then again, I think Wisconsin doesn't have a terrible draw, and you got 2 teams down. The one I like the most is Duke's region, between Michigan State and UCLA. I can see them beating up in the Sweet 16 again, having a rematch of the Big Ten tournament. UConn has struggled defensively at time if Tyler Bilodeau's hurt. So I actually think, I'm not going to say UCLA or Michigan State's going to go all the way to the finals, but just from a odds standpoint, if you get one of those teams into the Elite Eight against Duke, you never know what's going to happen. So yeah, I think this could be a year where one of maybe 3 Big Ten teams between Michigan, Purdue, and either Michigan State, Wisconsin, maybe could push towards the national title.
It'll be interesting. It's, again, my favorite time of the year, and we'll see what exactly it looks like here coming up on Thursday as Wisconsin takes on High Point out in Portland. Hey, Jordan, appreciate your time. Great job all year on the Big Ten Network, and I'm sure, are you going to be doing some stuff here during the tournament or no?
Yeah, I'll be in some studio stuff. Actually going to the studio here in about an hour, and then this weekend I'll be in the studio a little bit. So yeah, I'll be around.
All right, check it out. There he is, Jordan Taylor, former Badger and current Big Ten Network analyst. All right, there he was. Former Wisconsin guard Jordan Taylor, doing a lot of good work on the Big Ten Network. Appreciate his time. Jesse, let's jump into a few listener questions here. And this one is going to be absolutely impossible. I know this. I saw it when I asked for questions on, what was that, on Saturday when they were playing Michigan. And I don't know that we're going to potentially have an answer to this one. I don't know. I think it's perhaps the toughest question that I've ever seen for you. And I don't even know if you'll want to do this. Carter says, start, bench, cut. Boyd, Nick Boyd, John Tonje, Johnny Davis.
I mean, truly an absurd question. Why?
Yeah. Start, bench, cut.
Is the rest of the roster so good that the other two are not worthy of being on the court? I understand the premise to a degree.
Essentially rank those players, right? I know what Nick Boyd has done this year has been amazing. I know what John Tonje did last year was amazing. Johnny Davis was Big Ten Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And though his career in the NBA has not gone the way that he wants it to, he was a lottery pick. So
and he carried them in a season when they were picked to finish 12th.
Yes.
I know he got hurt late in the year, and we remember what happened against was at Iowa State in the second round.
State, yeah. But his injury against Nebraska in that finale, I think at least maybe colored some of how they're handling the Nolan Winter one, where the Big Ten tournament, he wanted to play in the Big Ten tournament because they wanted to win both the regular season and the Big Ten tournament title. And he was, I'm fine, I'll play in it. He wasn't 100%, and he were close to it. If they had sat him, maybe he's in a better spot come Thursday and or Friday and Saturday, whenever that game, whenever those games were against, can't remember who the first game was. Colgate. I think they played Colgate in the first round, and then Iowa State.
I don't know how you rank these three.
Johnny Davis was a very good high level guard rebounder as well, right? Like he jump over everybody. He's just he was special. And I'm not saying Nick Boyd's not special. Nick Boyd is potentially the best pure scoring point guard Wisconsin's ever had. But that year that Johnny Davis had was Big Ten Player of the Year type of stuff.
All-American, John Tonje, All-American. Tonje just did it in such a different way. He was a smooth operator, and it felt like you didn't even realize it, and he had 32 points in a Big Ten tournament game.
This is an impossible question.
Yeah, I don't honestly know how to rank them because they're all totally different players and they play on completely different teams. I know that Tonje's was just a year ago, but I mean, you only had 6 returning players off this roster, 3 of whom were part of the rotation. And Johnny Davis came before this transition to what this new offense is. So I'd like to have all 3. I know this was, yes, you're right. It's an impossible question to answer. I don't know how I would pick.
Well,
who are you going to cut, Zach?
I would.
Tough.
Starting Johnny Davis. Johnny Davis can play both ways. Like Johnny Davis, like he's going to give you defense. He's going to give you rebounding. He's going to give you scoring. The only thing that gives you pause with Johnny is the 3-point shot, right? And if they were shooting the amount of threes back then and that they were shooting now, I don't know that he is a guy that you want taking as many. So maybe it's different. I'm probably going to talk myself into cutting Johnny Davis, but I'm not. But it's a very tough question. It's really just, can I put all the guys together? Because if we put their games together, I think you have the best player in the country. Just the pure scoring ability of Nick Boyd, John Tonje with his 3-point shooting and his feel for the clutch a little bit, and Johnny Davis's athleticism and size and leaping ability. And, I think we maybe underrated John Tonje in that a little bit. Some of the dunks he had were very ferocious, but give me those 3 guys together, and I'll say you have the best player in the country.
I think what this question does is give you great appreciation for the talent that's come through here the last 5 or 6 years. We spent a lot of time this season talking about the transfer portal edition, the guy the last 3 years with AJ Storr, John Tonje, and now Nick Boyd, and certainly Johnny Davis helps to kickstart the whole thing when you say, we just had an All-American. We had best player in the league. We had an NBA lottery pick. You could say that you had 2 first-round draft picks when Sam Decker and Frank Kaminsky were here. But at a certain point, you can't really use that if a new generation of players is here and it's been 10 years. But you could point to Davis and you could say, come be that guy. And Wisconsin's been able to consistently do it. So there have been some unbelievable players for Wisconsin. And maybe we'll get to see Nick Boyd for a few more games. We'll see. But he's going to have to play very well if Wisconsin wants to make it out of the first weekend, undoubtedly.
Yeah, he obviously Darius Acuff in the second game potentially with Arkansas and what they just did in the SEC, winning the SEC tournament title, I should say. That's so tough. And the thing is, Nick brings like the energy that I don't know that John Davis a little more reserved at times. John Tonje a little more reserved at times. Nick Boyd never reserved. He is always going. Always.
I love it. By the way, I mean, we've come this far into the show and didn't mention that 29 seconds into the game, there's a double technical.
Yeah.
Against Purdue.
I needed that. I believe is what he said. I needed that.
It was awesome. And I don't know if I've ever seen a Wisconsin player thrive in that fashion. Like his game will go up 12 notches because somebody was talking some crap, and Nick will give it to you every bucket, which is exactly what he did. And he brought the heat, and he didn't have his best game against Michigan, but that relentlessness and that fire is something that is key to his game, and I think sparks the rest of Wisconsin's team.
Absolutely. He did not have a great game against Michigan, and yet he hit the 3 that tied it. And then you just had he's not going to win National Player of the Year, but he's one of the top players in the country with Lindenborg coming back down and hitting what was an open shot. Even though it was right there at the buzzer or right around the buzzer.
I said Purdue. It was Illinois because it was Boswell who was getting in his grill. Which
you said Purdue? Yeah.
The stupidest thing you could ever do. I get you're trying to set the tone, but then he picked up his second foul and he spent so much of the game on the bench and he ultimately fouled out. And Nick was able to manage the game enough that he didn't have to sit on the bench. But God, in retrospect, what a dumb decision by Boswell, because you basically took yourself out of the game and you're supposed to be the best defender.
Well, and he obviously had to sit and watch that first game down in Champaign. He did not play in that one. So I assume he's like telling him, oh, you think you did something great? I wasn't on the floor last year now, or last month. I'm here now. Let's see if you can do it again. And poor choice by him. You'd have to know your opponent, right? Like it's the whole Michael Jordan thing. Don't pinch, don't antagonize the guy who's going to thrive off someone talking crap to him. And that's exactly what Nick Boyd did.
Is this where I'm looking at the iPad and laughing, saying, and I took that personal?
Yeah. And Nick said it afterwards. I took it. I needed that. Like he's the last guy in Wisconsin's roster I would ever do that to. Yeah. I would say, yes, sir. Do you just, you know what I mean? Like, even though you're going to play hard and you're going to be getting after it, you can do all those things without giving him the extra boost he needs. Because he, in reality, doesn't usually need it. It's BYO. What is it? BYOJ, bring your own juice. Who was it that said that? That was a football thing. Can't remember who it was, though.
Is it Colin Wilder? I don't know. It feels like
that. I think it was. BYOJ. Yeah, that's a tough question. As I sit here right now, Nick Boyd's the guy I would want this week. Based on what he just did in the Big Ten tournament. He's the guy I would want. The last time I saw John Tonje, though, he was putting up 37 against BYU and single-handedly trying to drag Wisconsin to the second weekend.
Yeah, he did have 32 in the Big Ten tournament, which at the time was a single-game program record in the tournament for Wisconsin, only to be broken 2 times by both Blackwell and Boyd because Wisconsin does what it does this year.
Yeah. I'm sure we're going to get crap for not actually answering that question, but
I'd love to hear what the people watching or listening, what their answers are, because that is such a tough question. I don't know how you answer it.
Yeah, that was brutal. All right, a couple more questions here. All the focus will be on Rapp shooting. This is from Up North Badger. Does he deserve more credit for his defensive development? primary defender on and held him to 4 points.
Yes. And I think the staff has given him a lot of credit because they gave him a lot of crap early. And I think they were, I wrote about Rapp a few weeks ago, and Greg Gard said that he's been willing to take coaching, and Wisconsin has coached him hard. And in talking to Austin about this, Wisconsin's rules are unique to Wisconsin, or they're certainly different from what Rapp had to do at Portland, because Austin talked about, I could get away with stuff. I could go and shoot my 7.5 threes a game, because that's what he averaged, and maybe make some mistakes on defense, and it was okay. And at Wisconsin, it's not okay. And so it took some time for him to adjust to the rules. I've mentioned this before, but when I did this Badger Bites video with Joe Krabbenhoft, he showed some clips of this season, and one of them was this critical play that Rapp made where he was basically the third rotation defensively. So they came off a ball screen, they passed it to a dude, then they threw it inside, and Rapp came off his man. He was in the left corner, and he stole the pass or knocked it away, so Wisconsin got the ball. And Krabbenhoft is like, and 2 months ago, he would have been hugging his man in the corner. And so at 6'10", he's got the length and the size, and he said he feels like he's gotten to a point where perhaps he's an underrated defender, because you don't think about Austin in that fashion. And again, he does have that length and size, and I think he's demonstrated more of a willingness to be physical and to get some rebounds. He's gotten some key rebounds. So absolutely, I think he deserves a lot of credit for how far he's come. And as we've said before, it's easy to forget this dude is just a sophomore and halfway through his college career. So he has a lot of room for growth, and it's not just about the 3-point shot, which obviously he can get hot in a hurry.
Yeah, we were hammering that when he was getting hammered early in the year for, not playing up to the potential that we thought potentially he had. It was I always tried to remind myself and actually say it and remind others, he's in his second year. Mm-hmm. He's still young. This isn't a 1-year transfer guy. This is a multi-year transfer guy. And you have to at least allow him to grow a little bit. He's not Nick Boyd. He's not a guy who's played 1 million games in college and, doesn't need to be developed even any further. He needs that. And we've seen that this year. So
Greg Gard said he didn't lift any weights at Portland. I don't know how that's possible.
That's crazy.
I don't know how that's possible, but okay, think about that. So what can you do if you've got some time in this system and an offseason to get stronger and bigger and obviously go through these wars and battles in the Big Ten? He's just gotten so much better. And I think I told this story before, but when Austin visited, one of the things Greg Gard told him was, you're going to be in much deeper water here. And effectively, when you went and played Gonzaga and St. Mary's in the WCC, you're going to be doing that every night in the Big Ten. And so I think Austin has adjusted very well.
Brian says, what does Nolan Winter's return mean for the starting lineup and playing time? Badgers found so much success with Rapp and Bielowski stretching the floor, opening up driving lanes for Boyd and Blackwell to go off, especially against Purdue and Illinois. Curious how Gard handles it. Nice problem to have.
I think we touched on this earlier in the show. I don't know what the answer is here, and I think it has a lot to do with how close to 100% they believe Nolan is. Because if he's close, you give him more minutes, and maybe you just plug him right back into the starting lineup because he was only out of it for 2 weeks, as you said. Or if it's not close, I don't know what you do with this. Do you start Austin Rapp, especially in the first game, knowing, well, he's still 6'10", and he'll still be one of the biggest dudes on the floor against High Point, and he can stretch the floor, and he's gotten better defensively, and you just work Winter into the game for a handful of minutes in the hopes that gives him a rhythm and he could play more later? I don't know, because the other thing is, if you've got this type of ankle injury, well, how long would you want Winter sitting? Would you want him to warm up and then come off the bench? And then that could potentially be an issue. So I think Wisconsin staff has a lot to figure out. It is a good problem to have because Winter's given him a lot this year, 13 plus points, almost 9 rebounds a game. But to me, it comes down to how close to 100% is Winter.
Absolutely. All right. Who you got? Well, how far you got Wisconsin going? Got him winning Thursday? How far you got him going?
I got Wisconsin winning Thursday, unlike Clark Kellogg. I feel like it's funny because the last couple of years, you and I talk often off camera as well, and we'll text each other. And sometimes you just get this feeling and you're like, I don't like how that worked out. Like I felt this way about the James Madison game. I thought James Madison was going to win the BYU matchup in Utah, right? That was in Utah, wasn't it?
It was.
Not ideal.
Unfair, but yes.
Yeah.
No, not in Utah. It was in Denver.
Oh, right. Denver.
Still.
You know what? I'm picking Wisconsin to make it out of the opening weekend.
I'm
going to say they get to the Sweet 16 for the first time in 9 years.
So obviously they would get either Arkansas or Hawaii in the second round. Which one do you have them beating?
Arkansas.
Okay. So a little John Calipari.
Yes. Yes.
And Wisconsin, they had one or two. They had a matchup, couple matchups a few years ago that were pretty well known to Badger fans.
Yeah.
1-1. Will this be the tiebreaker? This is like the rubber match.
And Arizona, by the way, the 1 seed out here in the West region. I don't know if I'm willing to go that far, but I don't know. Maybe I just think these last 2 months have really impacted how I feel about this team and, again, what is possible. But I will not be shocked if they don't if they lose to High Point, just because of, I think, what we've seen, the ceiling and what the floor can be. I just feel like this construction of players, and Wisconsin has built toward this for the last few years, and how they've brought in players who could shoot the three, how they have this dynamic backcourt. It just feels like this ought to be a team, even though technically it would be a seeding upset if they play Arkansas in the second round, that has the potential to make it out. For all these seasons that have ended in disappointment because Wisconsin should have made it out, I just feel like these guys, this is the group that can do it.
Yeah, I think they get out of. I think they win Thursday for sure. It's a coin toss, certainly, if depending on who that team is on Saturday. If it is Arkansas, I think it's a bit of a coin toss. Both teams have some dynamic players, especially dynamic scorers. And so I mean, you said first to 90, or someone said first to 90 on Thursday. It might be the same thing on Saturday.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of points. And if there's not,
some of the best, right? Like some of the best offenses in the country are in the West region. And Wisconsin's one of them. High Point's one of them. Arkansas is one of them. So it is not going to be something where you're just sitting there and, we'll see. It's going to be fun. We'll see how it plays out. Jesse, thank you very much. We'll catch up out in Portland.
Thanks, Zach. Talk soon.
All right, there he is, Jesse Temple from Badger Connect. You've been listening to The Swing.